Hello and welcome to Sonic Safety. I am your host, Sam Watts. This is my podcast, if you haven't figured that out by now. Thank you very much for listening along, or if you're watching on the camera there, or on the YouTubes or whatever, wherever I post this here. Thank you for watching as well. This is a podcast about trucking safety, transportation safety, all that good stuff, okay? My goal with this podcast is to make it entertaining, informative, and interesting. That is what I want to do. Safety, I know sometimes gets a bad rap for maybe not being that stuff, but it really is. And safety guys, most safety guys out there are there to make sure that you're being safe and that you are protected, okay? That is, as a safety guy myself, that is my goal, is to make sure that you, as the carrier, are protected, okay? We're not here to be a buzzkill. We're here to make sure nobody gets killed, all right? So, and because of that, I've created this program, Sonic Safety, where I talk about all things safety. I kind of pull back the curtain and show you why safety guys think the way they do, or safety ladies. I'm not here to say one thing, but why safety people, let's put it that way. Why we think the way we do, why maybe we come up with policies the way that we do, and maybe what the DOT and FMCSA is thinking when they try to enact policies. And on today's show, we've got kind of a good one. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes our shows are duds. This one is not. I'm just kidding. Every show we do is a home run. And you want to know why every show we do is a home run? It's because we have fantastic sponsors like Ewing Safety and Industrial. Seriously, if you haven't done so yet, check them out, okay? If you need anything safety-wise, safety clothes, safety equipment, safety rigs, even tools and stuff like that. For Pete's sakes, I bought, what did I buy? 1,000 crowbars from them? Or did I buy 5,000 crowbars from them one time? I think I just, no, that seems like way too much. I think I bought maybe did I buy 100 crowbar? Whatever. Okay. I'm not here to, I bought a lot of crowbars from them. Okay. They had to come, they had to ship them on a truck, like a big truck, like a semi truck. And I called up the owner, Katie, and I said, hey, I need some crowbars. She said, you got it. And then I said, do you want to know how many crowbars I need? She's like, yeah, that's probably a good idea too. And so I told her, and boom, we had them. So if you need anything, check them out, ewingsafety.com, ewingsafety.com. Or if you want, you can go visit them in Morris, Illinois at their facility, which you can find the address on ewingsafety.com, or you can give them a call, 815-513-0214, okay? Check them out. You won't be sorry. If you are sorry you checked them out, that is on you, okay? Cool. All right. Moving on, we have hot off the presses. I don't know if it's hot off the presses. It's hot off my printer. I can tell you that. The FMCSA, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, has come out with their top 10 violations, top 10 acute violations, and top 10 critical violations for the year 2024. As you know, we are in 2025 now. So these are the top violations that happened last year. How did they get this information? That's one question you might be asking. They get it through safety reviews. Auditors look at violations in the safety reviews. There's also, they get some of this information from the roadside inspections and things like that. But most of the time, this is the violations that pop up when they come out and do audits, okay? I don't have the number in front of me, but I know it's in the thousands of number of audits that DOT, FMCSA does every year. And at the end of every year, they compile a list. And these are the lists. Now, you might be saying, okay, you got critical violations and you have acute violations. What's the difference? Well, you might think that critical violations are the bad ones. And don't get me wrong, any violation's a bad violation. But acute violations are actually the ones you got to watch out for. They're not as adorable as they might sound. Acute violations are actually a pretty big deal. So here's how the FMCSA defines acute violations, is that they are so severe that they require immediate corrective action. Failing to implement an alcohol and controlled substance testing program is an example of an acute violation. So basically the FMCSA comes in and says, holy cow, you guys are screwing this thing up bad. You need to fix this now or you don't get to operate anymore. Okay. There are the rating systems. You might know about them. There's satisfactory, which means everything's good. Conditional means, hey, you're screwing up. You got to get this thing back up going. And then you got unsatisfactory. Acute violations will throw you into the unsatisfactory category or at least conditional. And with the condition of you got like 60 days to put a plan in place to get this thing going. Now, critical violations, as the FMCSA says, it's a critical violation. They view it as a sign of poor safety control management. So like failing to require a driver to make a record of duty status is an example of a critical violation. So in other words, they're still bad. Don't get me wrong. Violations in general are bad. But these are ones that, okay, maybe management overlooks something and something happened and, okay, guys, get it fixed. Again, critical violations will throw you into the conditional rating as well. And if you have too many of them, then you get put in unsatisfactory as well. So the point is, all violations are bad. Acute ones are worse, okay? Don't let the name fool you. They are not actually cute. So what I thought we could do in today's episode of Sonic Safety is go through the top 10 acute violations. Now, in the next episode, I am planning on going through the top 10 of critical violations. You will see some that are very similar to each other. And again, it would take me a while to get through both top 10 lists. That's why I'm going to split this up into 2 episodes so that I can kind of dive into some of these, because some of them are kind of broad. And you might be saying, well, what exactly are they saying in this violation? And like I said in the previous episodes, you do not want to listen to me talk for an hour. That would be just, like I said, the first thing I want to do with Sonic Safety is make it entertaining. Well, when it's me by myself, I can only be entertaining for so long. Okay, I know you might be thinking, no, Sam, you're awesome. Thank you. You didn't have to say that, but I'm going to break these 2 lists up into 2 episodes. So if you are desperately wanting to hear the critical violations, you'll have to come back next week. But if you only want to hear about acute violations, boy, do I have good news for you, because that is what we are going to go through right now. So I was going to maybe do like 10 to 1, but at the same time, I don't think any of you are going to really guess what number 1 is, nor do you really care. It's not like a song countdown, like top 10 songs of the 2000s or whatever. So I think we're just going to go 1 through 10. Okay. Start off with the most common violation, acute violation. So here we go. The number 1 acute violation that was found in 2024 is allowing a driver to drive with the suspended, revoked, etc. CDL. So in other words, the driver should not be behind the wheel because he does not have a CDL. There are companies out there that will put a driver behind the wheel and say, I don't care if you have a CDL, just get going. Drive the highways, drive at night, avoid the tolls, whatever. There are some companies that will do that. There are not a ton, though. And here's the deal. There are probably more drivers than you even realize out on the road right now that don't realize that they don't have a CDL. And you might be thinking, how in the world do they not know that they don't have a CDL? Well, I'll tell you, because I have seen this firsthand in different companies, and I've had very good drivers, guys that have a lot of miles and a lot of years behind them, be driving without a CDL. And here's how that works. So if you drive a commercial truck or a commercial vehicle, you have to have a med card. And a lot of guys do that. A lot of guys will get their med cards. Usually every year you got to get it. Some of the healthier ones can go over 2 years. Some of the bad ones have to go every 3 months. But you need a med card. Each state requires that you submit that med card to them, okay? So different states have different policies with that. A lot of them you can email. Some of them you have to go in and physically give it to them. Some you have to mail in, things like that. A lot of drivers, I shouldn't say a lot, some drivers don't remember to do that. And if you don't do that, your CDL gets revoked until you do that. And usually the state will send out a letter to the driver so that they can see and like, oh, shoot, I got to do that. But here's the problem. A lot of drivers don't go home very often. There's drivers that will stay out for 2 months at a time and they won't get their mail for a while. And so they don't get the notification. And then all of a sudden they're outside of Yankton, South Dakota at a roadside inspection. And the officer says, hey, you don't have a valid CDL. And guess what? They get you out of the truck. You don't get to drive the truck anymore and go, oh, son of a gun. Yeah, let me get home and I'll take care of that. They say, that's cool. You should, but you have to get out of the truck. And now all of a sudden you have a truck and trailer and driver stuck outside of Yankton, South Dakota. Ask me how I know about this, because I one time had a truck and trailer and driver stuck outside of Yankton, South Dakota because he forgot to submit his med card. Okay. So it might sound, allowing a driver to drive without or on a suspended or revoked license might sound like it might sound terrible. And it is. I mean, if you are a company that knowingly puts a driver out there without a CDL, shame on you. But I'm going to tell you that I believe, then there's nothing to back this up with. They just have the violation. But I believe a lot of these are actually probably legitimate drivers who just forgot to submit med cards. Or I know sometimes with the child, not child services, but the child support. There we go. If you don't pay that, they can downgrade your CDL. I mean, there's a couple things that if you don't do, they can downgrade you. And so I would venture to say that 7 out of 10 drivers who were driving on a suspended or revoked license didn't even know that they had a suspended or revoked license. But that is a number one acute violation. If you have a suspended or revoked license, you can't drive a commercial vehicle. So anyways, number 2, failing to implement a alcohol and or drug testing program. That is a must. If you are a commercial carrier, you have to have a drug program. You have to do a pre-employment drug test. You have to do random drug tests. There's reasonable suspicion drug tests. There are drug consortiums out there that will handle all this for you. You just have to get that set up. Okay. Basically, you have to call them and say, I'm a carrier. I need a drug plan. They can kind of take it from there. But if you are operating a commercial line and you don't have a drug policy or drug program in place, that is an acute violation. They want to make sure that the guys who are out on the road should be out on the road and are not drunk, high, whatever. Okay. So if you run a carrier, you need to make sure you have a drug testing program in place. Number 3, then, failing to randomly test for drugs and or alcohol. If you have CDL drivers, they have to be in a random pool. Okay. Again, the drug consortium can handle all this for you. Usually it's once a quarter. They draw new names out of a pool. Sometimes you have no drivers that need a random. Sometimes you have 15, 30, 45, 50 drivers that need a random. It's random. Despite what every driver I've ever given a random test to says, it's completely random. Okay. They like to argue, I just did one last quarter. It's like, yeah, okay. Well, it's random. It's literally a lottery system. Maybe you should go buy a lottery ticket if you've done 2 or 3 random tests in a row. Okay. Maybe that's your luck, but you have to make sure that your drivers are in a random pool. And here's the other thing too. If they're in a random pool, make sure that you get them in to be tested. Because if they do not go in for their random, that is the same as refusing a drug test. That just comes back to hurt the driver a ton. Okay. So usually you have a full quarter, 3 months to get a driver in. Make sure that you do that. Okay. Because if you don't, that hurts them and it hurts you. Okay. Failing to randomly test for drugs and alcohol. So get them into a random program and make sure you get them in. All right. What do we have? 4. Okay, here we go. Using a driver who has tested positive for a drug. Are you starting to kind of see a pattern here? We do not want drug addicts behind the wheel of 18-wheelers, okay? Or whatever commercial vehicle you're driving. If you test positive for a drug in a random, in a pre-employment, all that stuff, you can't be behind the wheel. There is a program out there called the SAP program. It's a substance abuse substance abuse professionals. Okay, if you test positive in a CDL or a commercial drug test, you now have to go into the SAP program. You have to meet with the counselor. The counselor will give recommendations of how many times they need to be tested in order to come back. They have to do a return to duty test. I mean, it gets complicated. So my advice, if you're driving a commercial vehicle, don't do drugs, don't drink excessively, just kind of try to live that cleaner lifestyle and you won't have any problems. Because I've seen a number of good truck drivers lose their jobs because they can't stop doing drugs. I mean, there's no other way around it. Like just stop it. If you drive a commercial vehicle, stop it. Okay. If you notice the top, out of the top 5 here, 3 of them are about drugs. Don't do them. Okay. Did we learn nothing in DARE? Don't do drugs. Okay. If you drive a commercial vehicle, stay away from them. And if you are a commercial line or, a truck owner, you can't use a guy unless he's going through the SAP program. You can drive a truck and be in the SAP program, but you have to get in that program. And that takes a little time, takes some money too. And, but if you really want to continue driving after testing positive, that's how you have to do it. Okay. Number 5, allowing a driver with more than one CDL to drive a CMV. Hey, the FMCSA DOT wants to know who is behind the wheel and make sure that they should be behind the wheel, that they say who they say they are. And because of that, there is a report you can run out there called the Commercial Driver's License Information System. A lot of us just call it the CDLIS. And what it is, it's a nationwide computer system that enables state driver license agencies to ensure that each commercial driver has only one driver's license and one complete driving record. They don't want guys changing their identity because, they got into a bad accident over here, change their identity, get another CDL, okay? They want to make sure that whoever's behind the wheel is who they say they are and what their driving record looks like, okay? So the CDLIS report isn't mandatory, but it is, I can't recommend it enough. That and a PSP report. Both of them, not mandatory, but they're not expensive, and you will not regret running them, okay? So, because number 5, allowing a driver with more than one CDL. You want to make sure that the guy you hire is who he says he is. So if he's willing to lie about that, what else is he going to lie about? Anyways, number 6, no proof of financial responsibility. This is operating a truck with no insurance, okay? You got to have insurance. Usually if you work with brokers and stuff like that, they'll make sure that you have insurance because they'll stop working with you like a couple days before your insurance runs out because they want to make sure their product isn't on your truck when it does not have insurance. So make sure that you have insurance. I know that's a tough one now. That's an expensive piece. It's sometimes tough to get. Underwriters have lost all their sense of humor when it comes to this, but you need to make sure that you have insurance on your truck because if you don't, you're in so much trouble if something were to happen. If you got into an accident that you caused and you don't have insurance, there's possible jail time headed. So anyways, make sure that you have insurance on your equipment. Number 7, using a driver who has not completed a return to duty process. So this is what I'm talking about with the drug testing, with the SAP program, the substance abuse professionals. They're going to make you do a return to duty drug test, okay? Make sure that you can pass that one. If you don't do a return to duty drug test, you can't drive, okay? That is required for you to get back behind the wheel of a semi truck. A lot of times guys get confused. They'll go in for like a random test and say, well, that's my return to duty. No. It has to be an authorized return to duty drug test, okay? You can't bypass it. You can't go in for a pre-employment drug test and go, well, I passed that one, I'm good to go. No. It's a specific drug test that you have to do. Then you have to submit that to the clearinghouse so that everyone knows that, hey, I am good to return to duty, okay? So do not confuse that with a pre-employment or a random test. A return to duty is very specific. The drug testing people will need to know that you are doing a return to duty. A lot of times it's going to be monitored, so someone's going to be in there watching you do the drug test, which is super awkward. But that's what comes with getting a positive drug test somewhere down the line. So doing a return to duty, if you don't do it, you can't get back behind the wheel until you do complete it. Okay, number 8, fraudulent records. This is kind of a very vague one. And basically it just means that somewhere, even the definition, I even went and got the definition off of the FMCSA, and basically a fraudulent or intentionally false statement on any application, certificate, report, or record. So basically, if you lied about any driving history, if you lied about basically anything in the application process, anything that says that you are who you say you are, you've accomplished what you say you've accomplished, anything like that. And this also goes to the motor carriers, if they knowingly put someone out there that shouldn't be there. It was kind of a broad one. That one I had to go look that one up, because I was like, what do they mean by fraudulent records? Like, is that no CDLs, no whatever? It's like, basically, if you said anything that appeared not to be what it is. Okay, so again, just like your mother always taught you, always say the truth. Okay, because no one's a good enough liar to always get away with it. So tell the truth, you'll be just fine. Okay, number 9, operating an out-of-service vehicle. This one is, I've seen this one a handful of times myself. It's a driver gets pulled into a weigh station, and they get put out of service for something, and then the weigh station closes, okay? And now they're just sitting there. There's no officers around, and the driver decides to leave, okay? You can't do that, okay? That's operating an out-of-service vehicle. If you get put out of service, you have to have someone come out to you and fix it, and then sign off on it to show that, hey, whatever put us out of service is now compliant. We're good to go. Unfortunately, sometimes that means you got to sit for a while. Okay, getting put out of service is not a fun ordeal. It takes time. It takes a lot of money, and a lot of times, there are times when you get put out of service for stuff that should have been caught in a pre-trip inspection. There are some times where things just happen. And sometimes officers will find some pretty hidden things. If you're doing like a level 1 inspection where they get under the truck and all that, there's some stuff that they're going to catch that might put you out of service. Anything to do with brakes is most likely going to get you put out of service. Anything with bad tires is going to get you put out of service. So always make sure you kind of check that stuff before you go, because if you get put out of service at a weigh station or out on the road somewhere, then you have to have someone come out to you. Automatically, there's going to be a hefty delivery charge now and mileage come out to you. And that $800, $900 tire that you could have gotten fixed at a truck stop or whatever, now all of a sudden turns into a $2,500 fix, okay? But if you do get put out of service, you cannot move, okay? You got to stay there until an authorized repair person can come out and fix it and sign off that, yes, you're good to go. So if you get put out of service, don't try to make it to the next truck stop, okay? Got to stay there, got to get it fixed where you're sitting. All right, number 10, last one for the acute violations of 2024 is using a driver who refused to take a drug and alcohol test. So if you have a driver that refused to take a pre-employment drug test and you say, good enough, head on out, you can't do that, okay? They have to take all the required drug tests that the FMCSA puts in place. If they get called up for a random, they got to take the random, okay? If you're doing pre-employment, everyone's got to have a pre-employment drug test. And you got to wait for that test to come back before you put them in a truck, okay? So make sure, and that's what I'm saying with the randoms. If you don't get your guy in for a random, and it passes and he never takes his random, then your driver now qualifies for refusing a drug test, okay? So if there's a random that needs to happen, you need to get your driver in for that, or it'll go against them as refusing a drug test, and then that's just a nightmare on their part. So anyway, that is the 2024 top 10 acute violations that the FMCSA has put out. Next week, we're going to talk about the top 10 critical violations. And in those, you might see some similarities. And we're going to go over why maybe that falls into critical versus not acute. But you'll have to wait for next week to do that. So here's what we are going to do now. I am going to thank Ewing Safety and Industrial for their support of this show. Fantastic people over there. Go check them out at ewingsafety.com. And at the end of every episode, I like to leave you guys with the Bible verse. I am a man of faith. I think it is a very important thing. And so I love going through the Bible. I love reading it. So this verse today comes out of Romans 5:1 and says, "Therefore, since we have been justified through faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. Okay? Hey, it's by faith, all right? Not by good works. It's by faith that we get to heaven. So believe in God, believe in Jesus, believe Jesus died for your sins, and you'll be good. So anyways, if you have questions about that, if you have questions about safety, sam@wattsman.com. I'm here to help you guys out. And until next time, I got to come up with like a great way to end these things because I never know exactly what to say to send you guys off. So I'm just going to say this. Until next time, make sure that when you're out there, you drive safe.